Guest is Paul George.
Their focus in Oklahoma City is to get him committed before this night ends.
He walked on stage just a few minutes ago.
If y'all didn't quite get it, let me say it again, I'm here to stay.
Paul George has agreed to a 4-year, $137 million max contract.
This is basically him giving a giant hug to Oklahoma City. I am stunned.
Two players in their primes, both grew up in Southern California, both grew up Laker fans, and here they are planting their flag in the middle of America. It is a massive achievement.
Paul George is staying put, signing a max deal to remain in OKC. The Thunder offense was very good when George, Russell Westbrook, and Carmelo Anthony were all on the floor last year. But when Anthony went off the floor, Westbrook and George played lights out with a net efficiency that is nearly 10 points higher than when all three guys are on the court. So it's been a big night of celebrating as we're joined by ESPN Thunder reporter Royce Young. That party was planned by the team. They went all out. So cool. Nas was even performing. Can you put into perspective what kind of coup this was for Sam Presti and the front office?
Yeah, Hannah, this is a plan in action and a plan that came to fruition because this was a year-long thing for the Thunder. And it was a struggle at times. It was risky. It was a gamble. You know, they put a lot on the line when they made basically a year ago to today the trade for Paul George, sending two players to the Indiana Pacers, two good young players that the Thunder had controllable under contract. But they did it for the opportunity to hopefully convince Paul George somehow, some way, to not choose the Los Angeles Lakers, to not choose somebody else, but to remain with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they did that not only for just another season, but for 3, maybe 4 years. So, you know, for the Thunder, this is what they hoped for. This is what they dreamed for. They felt like all along they were developing a strong connection with Paul George. They thought they could get here. And when it started to really build a few weeks ago, and they started kind of planning this party, they had a good idea. They might have something to celebrate as free agency opened.
And this is a franchise that lost the guy who became this year's NBA MVP, James Harden. They also lost the back-to-back finals MVP, Kevin Durant. So what has been the early reaction around Oklahoma City to George staying?
Yeah, Hannah, what it really feels like to a lot of people in Oklahoma City and kind of talking to people within the organization, outside the organization, is, you know, obviously winning a championship, that is the pinnacle for any franchise. But for people in Oklahoma City that really kind of felt a level of, you know, just complete depression over the fact that Kevin Durant decided to leave, that he decided to take off and go west and choose someone else. For Paul George to decide to do what he did, this is kind of an achievement for a lot of people in Oklahoma City, that this is the way it went for them. And, you know, you talk about the Thunder and you mentioned the Harden trade, Kevin Durant. You know, their legacy has often been what it could have been. And now there's a lot of pride talking to people in the front office about the fact that some of their legacy now is that they're a small market that kind of shattered a glass ceiling, that they were able to do something that a lot of other franchises haven't been able to do in their position.
Yeah, when you think, hey, we beat out the big bad LA Lakers, so we got this guy to stay here. I mean, there's something special here. But then you mentioned spinning it forward here and talking about the playoffs and the expectations. Certainly this team was disappointing last year with that early loss in the playoffs. They have 11 players locked up. George is coming back. Is there anything else they can do this offseason to do better in the playoffs next year?
Well, they still have their taxpayer mid-level, and it's a little bit unlikely that they might use it just based on their current salary structure. But what the Thunder do have right now, Hannah, is they have a roadmap, and that's something that they have not had over the last few years. They've basically just kind of been season by season trying to piece it together because this guy's going to be a free agent, that guy's going to be a free agent. They don't know what the future is going to look like. Now they have Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Steven Adams, all in the primes of their career, and they have a good idea of what they can do to build a team around it. There's been a lot of conversation about the payroll and the tax that the Thunder are headed for. The Thunder can start trimming on that. They can figure out ways to kind of work around that because you know that when they sat down and talked with Paul George, he endorsed any plan that they're going to embark on this summer. So if that means something happens with Carmelo Anthony to soften some of the blow on the tax implications, it's not as if Paul George is going to be completely caught off guard with that.
Wow, yeah, he's making a cool $28 million, but 11 players locked in and much reason to celebrate. Royce, we always appreciate talking to you. Thanks. NBA free agency and approximately $727 million spent already overnight. And the big headline is players are staying put. Why not?
One in particular, big name. You know, if the OKC Thunder were rated as a movie after last night, they'd be PG-13. More on that and him in just a second. Also happening overnight, our Dave McMenamin reporting that Cleveland Cavaliers GM Kobe Altman spoke to both LeBron James and his agent Rich Paul over the phone shortly after midnight when NBA free agency officially opened. And our Mark Spears reporting New Orleans Pelican star, all-star free agent center DeMarcus Cousins received calls from the Pellies and the Lakers early this morning, and he is expected to have meetings scheduled with both teams soon. Hannah?
Well, Jay, as you said, Paul George isn't going anywhere, agreeing to a 4-year, $137 million max contract to stay with the Thunder. Committed to re-sign with the team after spending one season there on a deal that features an option in the 4th year, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. George made the announcement at a house party hosted by Russell Westbrook.
If y'all didn't quite get it, let me say it again, I'm here to stay. I'm here to stay.
I would like to have been at that party. That looked like a lot of fun. Adrian Wojnarowski pulled an all-nighter probably, but for different reasons. Not partying, but getting a lot of information. How did this deal get done?
Well, Oklahoma City really, as the year progressed, was playing from ahead. And George became very comfortable with them and believed in the future, believed in the organization. Met with general manager Sam Presti earlier this week, had some questions answered. And then OKC wanted to do that meeting in Oklahoma City. A lot of teams meet out in LA. Agents are centered there. Teams fly out. Players are there. They built this meeting around that party that was organized by the organization. Russell Westbrook flew back in. And the Thunder's goal was to get that commitment from Paul George without him ever getting to sit down with Magic Johnson in LA. And they got it last night.
Yeah, because so many people were assuming that he would be that really easy free agent piece that LA could slide in there to play with LeBron. But they got very creative with this deal, right?
Right. Well, the 4-year deal that he agreed to, $137 million, includes a player option after year 3. So he can opt out of the deal after year 3 and then redo the deal on another 5 years. So 4 years, $137 million becomes 7 years, $284 million plus if he does another 5-year max deal then. And so it gives them some security here in the short term and then the chance to really cash in long term. That's part of the new collective bargaining agreement. And it's meant to try to keep players where they are, and that's a help for a smaller market like Oklahoma City when they're competing against an LA or New York or Chicago.
Well, sure, and one that had already seen James Harden walk and Kevin Durant walk. So this is a big win for them. They have 11 players locked up, which makes you wonder what else there is to do in OKC. So for more, let's go to Bobby and Jay.
All right, Hannah. Bobby Marks here to give us a front office perspective on all this. Looked like Paul George is using OKC as like just a 1-year stopgap to go to LA, but that's not going to happen. What were your first thoughts when you heard he was staying?
I was surprised. I was surprised based on where we were a year ago with the trade that occurred to getting to Oklahoma City, the intention of going to Los Angeles. It is almost like that David versus Goliath, that small market Oklahoma City versus that big market in Los Angeles. And I give Sam Presti, their general manager, a lot of credit because they were able to in-house recruit him for a year, and it worked out. The other thing I was real surprised at, the Lakers never got a chance to get a seat at the table, right, and never got to meet with Paul George there. All
right, OKC was a 4 seed in the playoffs, out in the first round the first year with Russ, Melo, and PG-13. What's the team's ceiling headed into year 2 with this trio?
Well, it's expensive. We talked about it last night. It's going to be close to $300 million with salary and luxury tax. You are restricted with your minimum exception. The likelihood is what you want to build on is continuity. Bring this group back. We forget about Andre Roberson, who hurt his knee in that Detroit game, who is kind of that X factor. If we can get Roberson back healthy, this team is a top 4 team in the West, but this is who you are for the next 3 or 4 years right now.
Okay, Bobby's going to be back a little later to get how all this impacts LeBron's decision. That's a little later this hour. Thank you, my friend. Hannah?
All right, Jay, so look at other free agency news. Kevin Durant will reportedly sign a 1-and-1 deal to stay with the Warriors. Bobby says that it's for $30 million in year one, a player option of $31.5 million for the second year. Chris Paul confirming in a tweet he's going to stay in H-Town, as reported by Adrian. It's going to be to the tune of 4 years, $160 million. He'll make $44 million in the final year of the deal at age 36. DeAndre Jordan reportedly agreeing to a one-year deal worth $24.1 with the Mavs. You remember he spurned the Mavs after agreeing to a deal a few years ago and signed with the Clippers. Now he is in Dallas. And the Nuggets opened their wallets for big man Nikola Jokic, agreeing to a 5-year, $148 million max deal. He's become the face of the franchise, first player in team history to receive a $100 million contract, Jay.
And the player not on that list of overnight signings, LeBron James. Dave McMenamin with us now on SportsCenter. Dave, you tweeted that LeBron had a discussion with Kobe Altman at 12:01 a.m. Eastern. What is the significance of this conversation?
Well, one, I think there's some significance that it was LeBron and Rich Paul, not just Rich Paul taking the call with Cavs management on LeBron, his client's behalf. And I think it just shows that there is a degree of professionalism still existing between these two sides. I know there were some reports coming out throughout the week that LeBron had gone radio silent on the Cavs. But, you know, what he had done really is operate under free agency the same way he'd done it in the past. And there was a constant dialogue between Rich Paul and the Cavs. So this is just an extension of that. I wish I could tell you the contents of that conversation. I don't have that for you, nor do I have information whether there was other calls that those two made with other teams around the league. But what we do know is that there at least was one box checked off by that call, and that is that the Cavs are still theoretically in this thing as we go day by day in free agency.
Any inkling that they may chat again soon?
If I get it, Jay, I'm going to call you up. We're going to do a special hit right with that information on the minute, but not yet. Not yet. Working on it.
I appreciate that, Dave McMenamin. Thank you, brother. Hannah?
Yeah, everybody needs those T-shirts. Don't ask me. I don't know where he's going. All right. So, Woj, what do you make of this early morning conversation between the Cavs and LeBron?
Yeah, I mean, that's procedural. You know, at midnight, you're going to call. We still want you. And you know, it's listen, there's a lot of history there, and I think there's mutual respect. And as Dave said, his agent, Rich Paul's been in contact with Cleveland. He's got other clients on the team. But LeBron James has not interacted with the front office. He has not talked with them about possible trade scenarios, free agent scenarios that the team would have liked to work with him on. And it's created a sort of paralysis around the Cavs because they don't want to give up on LeBron James, but they have to be realistic about where they stand and try to figure out what their future is going to be before he makes a decision.
Meanwhile, we all saw the video of his plane landing in L.A. Of course, he has a couple of houses there, as a thriving production business. I mean, it makes sense that he might return there after vacation. But people are treating the Lakers as a foregone conclusion, and also with the conventional wisdom that they have to bring in another face, somebody to play with him side by side to make them contenders. So where do things stand after the events overnight with the Lakers?
Well, the Lakers are certainly a factor, and they're very much in this. But don't rule out Philadelphia yet. Philadelphia is still working to try to get a meeting with LeBron James, with his representatives. You know, they have a lot to offer. They have a max slot they can slide him right into. They don't have to do anything with their salary cap. And, you know, to partner with Joel Embiid. They have
a lot of pieces in place there already
and
in
obviously
Philly.
Ben
right.
Simmons. They have two young stars, two young superstars that they can go forward with for a very long time. As LeBron James advances into his mid-30s, late 30s, you've got two guys who will be all-stars and maybe MVP candidates over time, and some role players there that this team would be ready-made with him to compete with Boston in the East. The Sixers are still in this.
Is that the kind of organization, top to bottom, that you can see him fitting into?
LeBron has gone to very different kinds of organizations. He went to Miami with Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra. He wanted that Heat culture. He came back to Cleveland when there was more uncertainty. He didn't know David Blatt. You know, L.A., it's magic, but it's not an experienced front office group that's had a track record of success. And in Philly right now, they don't have a general manager. Brett Brown, the coach, is the interim president of basketball operations. LeBron, in a lot of ways, makes the organization.
Very, very interesting. Wow. I like it that you're throwing Philly in there because everyone is treating Los Angeles like a foregone conclusion. But again, maybe they don't have the pieces. If he wants a ring, if he wants a contender, it makes more sense.
There are no foregone conclusions in free agency. There's just someone signing the contract. That's when it is.
I like that. That's the line of the day. There are no foregone